But I do think that most of us are kind of in that middle ground in whatever fields that we're doing, whether that's sport, whether that's business, whether that's, whatever thing that we're trying to accomplish. What other tangible things would you recommend for the normal person that feels like I'm kind of average? I would like to break through, like even like you did, like a little bit later in your career. What other practical things do you think are the most foundational to become, from average to great in a certain thing?
Well, that actually makes me think of the other major reason why I wanted to write that book. So it's a book about an apprenticeship, and I like that. I like that word. Like that was the way rock climbers described learning to climb when I started to climb. They said you have your trad climbing apprenticeship, and that word to me brings up connotations of a long process where you don't even really try to have the performance. You're just learning and you have no particular expectations of yourself other than to soak up everything you need to soak up over years. And then after, an apprenticeship lasts years, and then you can progress after that. And so I feel that in social media at the moment, uh, because of the way social media is set up with competition for attention on the internet and the way algorithms work, there's there's a drive to say, learn to do this in 30 days, hack your physiology and do this in 5 days or do this in one day, immediate results. And I think it's actually counterproductive a lot of the time. Um, and so that's where the idea of moving the needle comes from, where um, I was always, well, I did a sports science degree, and I remember looking at all of the studies on training, different training protocols, and I remember being pretty unimpressed by them and just thinking like, "Dan, like these are small gains. They're not nothing, but this is not what's making people great, where they really are transcending their different levels. When you observe athletes, um, they they behave in a different way from much of the population. And to me, the most fundamental way they behave differently from the population is they just do the basics, but they do the basics over and over and over again. So like, what are basics? Like, um, if you go into YouTube and type in rock climbing, the the biggest rock climbing YouTuber is Magnus Mitbo, a Norwegian climber. And I always remember him saying that when he was when he was 16, um, the the climbing wall, his local climbing wall, the owner of the climbing gym, just gave him a key to the gym, and he said that's what set me on the path. So what that does is it just lowers the hurdle to actually accessing training. It just allows you to be consistent. Consistency is the number one word in training. And that was the thing that I did. Like um I happened to live near a really brilliant crag for climbing with lots of boulders at the base of the cliff that were excellent for learning to climb on. But the hardest route in the country was on the main face overlooking that cliff. The combination of that environment was just so good because I could spend my day to day just pottering away, learning the basics of climbing, but constantly staring my big goal in the face. It never allowed me to relax and rest on my laurels. I was like standing on the boulder in front of me was feeling hard. And then I would look up at the main face and I would say, if I don't force myself to get through this little thing today, I'll never get to that up there. And it
Wow.
was just really good. And I made some decisions, some of which were I stumbled into by accident, and some of which they were good decisions that I made. Like one of which was um a lot of the boulders were high. They're high enough to break your ankle if you fall off.
Okay.
You probably wouldn't die, but like you're worried when you get like 6, 8 meters above a rocky landing.
Oh, wow.
It's not very good. So um, I would climb up as high as I could, get scared, come down, and you're dealing with as a climber. I was facing up to this. I was like, I want to live my life as a rock climber. How I'm going to be having this feeling of fear all the time. I need to develop a way of working with it. And the little decision that I made was just do one thing out slightly out of your comfort zone every day you climb without fail. It doesn't need to be big. And that little decision was just it was so pivotal. It's like such a small thing, but that that was like a moving the needle thing where as soon as I started to develop that habit, that's exactly the you're threading a needle psychologically because you're not going way out of your comfort zone, terrifying yourself, and then going away back. But you're not resting on your laurels ever. It's always one day, just a little step forward. And so sometimes I would climb up to my high point on a climb, and I was too scared to make the next move. So I just said to myself, just stay here for a couple of minutes. So when I'd get arrived there, I'd be shaking and fearful. But then I'd find that if I just said, just stay here before you down climb, after 2 minutes, I'd find that my heart rate and my breathing would relax. And I noticed that I started to see the holds. I was like, oh, I didn't see that 1 minute ago. And then it was like, oh yeah, okay, you'd put your foot there and then you do that. And it opened the next move. And then I could do one more move. And then I would have the same feeling of fear would come back. And so I started to just inch higher and higher on the climbs. And because I that that cliff was free, I could go there all the time. And I did go there. I nearly got thrown out of school for not attending school. And then when I left school, I bought a house, 10 minutes walk from the crag, and I just went there all the time. And I said to myself, I'm going to do all the climbs just one by one. So the consistency, so it's like setting up your whole life from like where you live, where you work, the environment you put yourself in, all serves this really basic thing of consistency and just going a little bit out of your comfort zone in a progressive manner. And you don't you don't need to overthink it. Like that was all that was really needed.
And that is absolutely wonderful. What fantastic advice.